Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Road Less Taken, the weekly web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversations with people who've made unconventional career choices and excelled at them. My name is Venky Srinivasan, your host. Our guest today for this episode of The Road Less Taken is a dear friend, a very, very accomplished and talented musician, but he's also transformed the education space in India to a large extent by aligning the concepts of music with STEM education. He's blazed a trail in terms of taking music to a large number of students, working with several hundreds of schools across India, and dovetailing concepts related to math and science and how you can learn them through the wonderful world of music. Our guest for this episode of The Road Less Taken, please welcome Anil Srinivasan. Hi Anil, very glad to have you here for this episode of The Road Less Taken. Welcome.
Hi Venky, nice to be on this very successful series you've been curating.
Thank you so much. So, any discussion with you will have to start obviously with music, which is your heart and soul. Growing up in Chennai, in what is the heartland of Carnatic music, what drew you to a very unique instrument like the piano? How did that come about? And how easy or difficult was it to learn it as you were growing up?
The honest answer is I don't know because I've been playing since I was three, and in those days, the late 70s, early 80s, it was very difficult to find instructors. So, and despite which I had, I would say, the fortune of having very good teachers. But I mean, it is certainly not just a road less taken; it's certainly an entire highway less taken. Chennai, not just for Carnatic music, Chennai is also, let's say, the heartland for Tamil film music,
Correct.
which is a genre in itself. And you've got urban folk traditions like Dappanguttu. I mean, there's a lot of things from Chennai.
Hmm.
So, and I think I would like to, I mean, I can say that now, I think. I mean, as 40 years down the line, I've sort of very quietly brought the piano into that heartland also. So I think that was probably my role, and I'm glad to say that I've at least partially fulfilled it.
No, definitely. But when you say the kind of instrument drew itself to you, did you see anybody playing it somewhere? Do you have any such memory? Did you see one? I mean, did you have one at your home or some relative's place or something?
The family folklore around it is that at the age of three in my school, there used to be a piano and a piano class, I mean, a music class.
Okay.
And one day I went up to the piano and demanded to play.
Okay.
Vidya Mandir being like your school, uh, considered an extremely unusual request, and so I was indulged.
Okay.
And apparently, I just started playing.
Wow.
So it,
Wonderful.
maybe I could have probably been, an onlooker or a sweeper or a lamplighter in the road that Beethoven's house was on. Who knows, right? So
Is it?
there's something that I was born with literally, and ever since I can remember, I've been playing the piano. So there's never been a moment or a year in my life when it has not been a part of me.
And there was no pressure from parents saying, go be a good boy, study, get into IIT, or become a doctor, become a CA type thing.
So never. My parents were very cool that way. But we must remember also that I was one of those, Venki. I was unfortunately one of those who also did pretty well academically.
Exactly why I asked. Yeah.
And not because of my parents. I mean, I'm just basically, what shall I say, a very true blue Mylapore Tamilian. I'm wearing blue also, and which means that scoring anything less than 98 in any subject is anathema to my.
Unacceptable. Yeah.
Or if I'm consistently scoring less than 70 in something, it basically means it's a subject not worth studying. So, it's that DNA I share with you. So I don't think I even need to explain that very, very much in detail. And I can tell you that my parents were very, very agnostic to whether I'm going to choose to become a musician or if I was going to go on to be something else. I know that they would have supported whatever choices I made. They were very liberal parents that way, very progressive. My father was very practical. He said that the piano is not going to be a great viable career for you in India. If you want to choose to go abroad and study it further, I leave that choice to you.
Okay.
Right? Our family circumstances changed when I was in say 11th or 12th standard. My father's company went through some financial problems, so I myself of my own volition put an end to pursuing music as a career, keeping it rather as a passion. And I chose to study economics, and I went on to do an MBA, and I did what everybody else does, and qualified myself in other ways. So, I mean, when I think about it, all that has helped a lot, and I know it leads into another question which you're going to ask me about Rhapsody shortly. So I will talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
But I think that I'll put it this way: I think the various rhythms of our life
Mm.
exist because they form a sequence that sometimes we ourselves cannot see. Okay,
Right.
I think everything happens in a sort of a preordained rhythmic sequence, and it's there for a reason. I think I was meant to study other things. I was meant to go outside of music for a bit and then come back to it. I think it's going out of music that made me miss it and love it even more. Drove me back to it in a way. So I think all of it has happened in a particular sequence because it was meant to be so. So that's the
These
way.
this academic and music thread finally kind of ended up meeting once again in Colombia, right? When you did your when you went there to do your PhD.
Doctorate, I chose to look at information processing, and it was more with consumer psychology. I was in the business school, but in the very first year, I had the good fortune of taking classes by certain eminent scholars who drove me towards music. So one is Professor Morris Holbrook, who himself used to play the piano, and he and I used to sit in his office during office hours and play jazz.
Wow.
And and that's the kind of academic climate that I think America has, which I think we should really appreciate.
Mm.
People are very liberal that way, and then training under people like Bernd Schmidt, who is not only a scholar in branding, but again a great aesthete and an aficionado of Western classical music. And so these are the kinds of people that I was studying under, and all of them started looking at, Anil, why are you wasting your time looking at logit models and probit models? You should be studying music, and look at how music affects the brain. And I think you should start going into that direction. And that eventually led me to what my life has become.
And will you then say that that was the trigger point or starting point for the wonderful Rhapsody journey itself? This whole idea of the fact that music can be the tool to teach what may be called conventional STEM topics and so on to children?
I suppose so, Venki. Although at that time I had no inkling of Rhapsody or anything, I just knew that my work belonged in the intersection between music and psychology. I knew that it was somewhere in that intersection. And when I say psychology, I don't mean BA psychology that we do in Indian colleges. I mean, cognitive psychology and also neurobiology. I knew that it was somewhere in the cross section of these things.
Mm.
I didn't really action anything on that until I came back. In fact, it was not music education that brought me back to India. It was music that brought me back to India. And I was beginning to perform and record prolifically at that time, 2006 7. And I finally took the decision to come back. And, what started out as a career in music, more and more and more, I started getting pulled in the direction of education. And it was only around 2009-10 that I formally started getting into the process of music education, right? And started a systematic journey there. But I suspect that would be the next question. So depending on the question, I will answer that.
Yeah, I mean, that was logically my next question. Like, what specifically triggered the journey, and tell us also what the journey has been. What exactly does Rhapsody do in schools, which is very different from the various other pedagogical methods that seem to be springing up every day these days?
So it was in 2010 that I was chosen for the Sangeet Natak Academy Award, which is the highest that anybody can get from a music point of view. And I think I'd probably be the first person who plays the piano who got an award like that.
Right.
So it's great recognition for the instrument as well as me. And So one of the things that happens when you get awards is that people start calling you as chief guests to various places, and one of those places was uh, a school in Tiruvarur in Tamil Nadu, which is sort of the capital of Carnatic music because all the three Trinity Carnatic composers were born there.
Right.
And when I asked school children to name the Trinity, they named three Collywood actresses instead of naming the three composers. And while we all had a laugh, it was a bit of a trigger point for me to say, okay, what is going on? Because if you go to Salzburg and even the toilet paper has Mozart in it, and like how is this even possible, right? So that began my journey. I started visiting schools to see what was happening in music classrooms, including your school, Venky. Because I had access through the people I knew to these schools, and I used to just go and sit in the music class and take notes furiously, right? And I realized that we had kind of veered off track. Music class was becoming a bit of a one teacher will sing one bhajan or will sing a particular hymn or a carol, and everybody is some 10 children will sing it, 20 children will be playing in the back. It's not really what music and here I am coming with cognitive psychology and neuroscience and talking about music and its effect on the brain. So it was like, what is going on here? Why are we not utilizing this? And of course, all the problems that most people know, which you also know, which is that typically music teachers are taught a particular musical tradition, say the Carnatic tradition or the Western tradition. They're not really taught on child pedagogy or how to take it to children. And classroom handling is a totally different thing. And also, what is age appropriate music? What would be age appropriate lyrics? What would be, say, genre appropriate or genre variety that you can present in a classroom? There's so much beyond just singing the nursery rhymes and carols that, we've all been taught as children. But people have not kept pace with that, right? So, this was at one level. The other level is that what NEP is beginning to talk about now, which is art integration. And I said, why is music being seen as this standalone performance art? I mean, that is a totally different facet of music, right? So, out of 100 children, maybe 2 or 3 children are interested in becoming performers, right? You can't be wasting a whole class timetable hour on that. That you do outside and do it one-on-one so that you develop his or her potential to a performance capacity, which is what we all do. I mean, you go to a guru for those kinds of things, right? What should be in the classroom should be what is appropriate for the timetable, for what is within the curriculum, where music, like everything else. So you study mathematics in order that mathematics helps you as an engineer or as a doctor or as an accountant or whatever profession you may get into. You don't study mathematics so that you will become Aldous Huxley, right? Similarly, you don't take up physical education so that you become Virat Kohli. You do physical education because you need to be physically fit and you need to have a particular body regimen. Okay. Similarly, music should be an input to education. It can't be the desired output, right? You must look at music and how can that shape the holistic development of a child. And when you start asking that question, whatever Rhapsody is doing becomes the obvious answer, which is that music is a cognitive facilitator. It accelerates learning, it promotes learning. So why don't we look at how not just STEM but academic concepts can be taught using music, because that then can become something that every child will relate to because they know those topics. And even if they don't sing it, the learning is still getting imprinted in the child's mind, right? So that is basically the format disruption that I did, and that has led to 460 lesson plans. And as of March 15th, 2020, before Corona hit us, we were hitting our 409th school.
Wow.
I want to say that we work with both private schools as well as government run and government aided schools through CSR outreaches. So 409th school touch point was March 15th, 2020. As of March 22nd, 2020, we are working only with 13 schools, but that's because schools are closed this year. It's not my fault. I'd like to say that, yes, of course, as a journey, that has also been obviously not easy. We have even met on the road in schools, and how difficult it is difficult to convince schools to even do the more obvious things. Okay. For them to do something so subtle that you're using music to teach them, etc., was difficult. But I think NEP 2020 has made the job easier for me. Now everybody is talking this, right? So all I can say is I got there first.
Absolutely. But I know that you have this larger belief beyond this very specific, use case that you have executed through the Rhapsody program, that art and science are not two divergent roads at all, and kind of these two very broad facets coming together builds perspective, builds a sense of appreciation, a sense of, if I might call it, holistic ability in people, especially in children, but probably in adults as well, right?
Absolutely. And we know this by just the experience of life, right? If you take your life from the moment you're born till today and you subtract music from it, will your life be the same? You know? If you take the day you were born and up to today and you take the law of thermodynamics out of it, I think your life will still be the same. Music actually has a much more profound effect than people give it credit for, because it's been the accompaniment to every moment of our lives. The day SPB passed away, every scientist cried, every artist cried, every layman cried. Okay, that is the effect that music has, you know. And you and I both know that music is intimately connected with physics. It's intimately connected with acoustics. It's connected with neurobiology. It affects the brain in a physiological way and a neurological way. Music connects, for example, with the ideas of energy and energy transfer, because it is, of course, audio energy that is getting transferred. So, I mean, when you start looking deeper and deeper, like the Doppler effect is a study in sound, but it is also equally a study in the recognition of pitch and frequency, which are again fundamental concepts to what music is. So, these are all interrelated in nature, right? When we say golden proportion, right, golden proportions exist in rose petals, it exists in music, it exists in the symmetry of the human body. It's all interwoven and interconnected, right?
Right.
So it is only I would say, the remnants of the Macaulay type of education system that said between 7 and 7:30 you should study maths, and 7:30 to 8 you should study English, 8 to 8:30 you should study language, and never the twain should meet. Okay. And you and I know the experience of life, right? When you're going and meeting a school, you're trying to convince them of a product. At that point of sale, are you a scientist? Are you an artist? Are you a businessman? Are you a mathematician? What? You're all of it in one, no? So, how can you say that the education system must be compartmentalized, but after that, magically everybody has to become interdisciplinary, right? Unless you seed the idea of interdisciplinarity from the time you get into school, right? You are going to come out of school expecting that if you want to be a mathematician, all you have to encounter is only maths in your life. Right? And we both know that that's not true.
Yeah. That's just infeasible. Yeah.
You have to encounter as soon as you came out of the school will be the auto driver who's cursing at you, right? So the negotiation of life, the experience of life requires you to be interdisciplinary. And unless we started bringing those things, I mean, music registers for children like that, right? I mean, any child will be singing a film song without even being taught how to sing it. Can we say the same for him with respect to, say, laws of gravity? No, it's not. It doesn't work that way. So why not use what is easy to help him with that which is difficult? And in doing so, also achieve the ambition of interdisciplinarity. Simple.
Absolutely. You alluded, of course, slightly in jest to the whole effect of the pandemic and the schools, of course, being physically shut. As both a musician and an educator, do you think this year is an important inflection point in the way both musicians are going to kind of take their music to their fans, as well as the way children are going to learn things in the future? Have we seen this great digital shift that has happened?
I don't think the digital shift has happened yet, because in India, I think we have huge disparity in the haves and the have-nots, and people who have access to devices. And I'm talking about both musicians as well as children and educators, right? So even with musicians, there are those who are very tech savvy, who have the access to the right kind of tools, platforms, softwares, who are making progress. But it has only deepened the gap between those who can and those who cannot, right? And I think we are in danger of losing a lot of artistic wealth unless something is done about it, right? And what can be done about it? Lots of things can be done about it. But to start with, I think we need to become aware that the gap exists, right? And this is spoken about, it's written about in the newspapers. And I think we are all knee jerking at this point. We just sort of like, oh, we have to go online. Let's get started. Let's create a Zoom class, right? So I think everybody just jumped in, right? While music does lend itself to online platforms and portability very easily compared to, say, physical education or something else. Access remains a worry, right? So, and also the modes of access. In India, I was telling somebody that the idea of social distancing is a joke, right? Because most of the times we live in 3 4 room houses where 20 people live. Okay, so what social distancing are we talking about? And in that space, right, how do I get across something as subtle as music, right? So that there's hardly any privacy. So multiplicity of issues that are there. Is it an inflection point? Obviously, it is. You and I both know that that's almost rhetorical as a question, right? So I think it's forced us to confront our worst realities, right? It's forced us, in some cases, made us more productive, because I think we are getting more things. People like you and me, who are at the upper end of the spectrum, who are educated, who have access to technology, we are able to use these tools and softwares to access more people, more ideas, be more available. But we have to think about the other end of the spectrum. And to me, even a child from an affluent household, is still at the other end of the spectrum, because childhood was not meant to be looking at a screen.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole tactile, experiential aspect of childhood is never. I mean, you don't go to school just in order to read from a textbook. You go to school to be with other friends. The friends we made in school are the friends we still have.
Yeah.
So I think it's forcing us to confront a lot of those questions. But it's like somebody told me, there are this many problems to worry about, and I have this smaller brain. So let me just do it one thing at a time. So I think we are all, most of us, just actually, even though we kid ourselves that we are planning this, and I'm strategizing my digital move and things like that, and I'm sure I will say a lot of those things very easily. Corporate jargon having been fed into me in B school. I still think, strategic diversification, right? I mean, we use all kinds of terms to basically say we're out of work because it's online this year, right? So,
Right.
um, but I think we need to play this carefully. That's my view. I think we need a deeper study of how children are reacting to the online spectrum. We need a more deeper psychological analysis of how they are affecting. I mean, I keep hearing from people saying, oh, children have taken to it like fish to water. I'm not even sure if that's a very comfortable statement to make, because if you're trying to tell me that children are becoming sociophobic, I don't think that's a happy thing to say. You know?
Yeah.
It's not a business checklist item for us to put a tick mark on.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
I
point.
think
Excellent point.
studying impact. So I would say inflection point, yes. Outcome, mixed.
Right. Right. So, couple of last questions before we make. We obviously can't let you go without requesting you to play a small piece for us. But before that, two last questions. One, what is the most memorable, as a musician, what is the most memorable concert that you have played, either in terms of venue and or in terms of crowd?
Okay, that's a difficult one. Quite a few. I would probably pick this concert that Sikil Gurucharan and I gave at the Esplanade Concert Hall in Singapore in 2008,
Right.
November. Oh, 12 years ago exactly. And I mean, first of all, it was a full house, and we felt very happy because we were newbies on the scene at that time. And to know that we had such a huge following overseas was very, very satisfying. But more than that, I played in Singapore. I mean, there was a Chinese person operating the lights, and Chinese works on script. They first piece is this color, the next piece is blue color, third piece, it's, you've given them an Excel sheet and they're working off of that. It's not the Carnatic Kacheri thing where I suddenly decide to do something else, right? But because I suddenly felt an inspiration to play a piece by Annamacharya called Chirap the Kanyakaku, which is devoted to Mahalakshmi. And I just played that, and Gurucharan started singing it. It was totally impromptu, off script. And without us having told him, the Chinese guy was so with us that he made the stage color gold,
Wow.
okay, and the color of Mahalakshmi. Okay, and then we went to him after the concert. We said, "How did you know how to do that?" And he said, "It seemed to me that you were calling to a higher power, and that higher power was feminine."
Fantastic. Without knowing anything about the language, the
So,
genre, nothing.
so I mean, and of course, the concert went well and all that. But to me, it was like one of those golden moments, literally. And I use the word golden again because it was everything went right, and including if we were able to carry the light guy with us, then clearly to me the concert was a success.
Amazing, amazing story. Yeah. And my last question to you will be, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to young aspiring musicians and or people who want to make a career in something that's completely non-conventional?
Love yourself. That's the only thing I will say. Because everybody is not going to.
Fair point. Good point. Okay. All right. Great. That was a fascinating conversation with Anil Srinivasan, who has, some great experiences and some terrific views on the whole spectrum of life, from music to mathematics. But we cannot let our master musician go without requesting him to play for us. So, Anil, the choice of what you want to play and how you can explain that to our viewers, I leave it completely to you. So, please take it on.
I'm actually bereft of what choice to make, but since it's festive time and I think it's been a difficult year, I thought I'll play a line from Carnatic music, and I'll play Sri Chakra Raja, which is to the feminine deity. I just spoke about the feminine deity, and it's my way of wishing whoever is viewing this a lot of luck and a lot of divine grace in being able to navigate the difficult path that lies ahead for us in the year 2021 and maybe even 21-22. So that's why.
Right.
Is to wish everybody a lot of luck, and well, we shall overcome.
Yes, Anil. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Great conversation, lovely rendition. Best wishes of the festive season to you and your family as well. Thank you so much for being here and sparing your time.
Thank you, Venky. Wishing you all the same as well.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, was Anil Srinivasan taking us through his journey, his thought processes, and how he's trying to transform the world of education and bringing it together with the world of music. I hope you liked that conversation. I hope that inspired you, energized you. And if it did do that, please go look up our YouTube channel, Nexus Consulting. All past episodes of the conversations we've had in season 1 with some wonderful guests and the ongoing season 2 are available. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay home, stay safe, enjoy the festive season, and I will see you soon on another episode of The Road Less Taken. Bye-bye.